Okay, so here's some examples. Make sure you have these in your notes. Okay, Roberta is considering buying a common stock that pays an annual dividend of $2.13 a share. If she purchased 700 shares for $45.16 a share, what would be her annual income? Now, the $45.16 is actually her cost to buy. So that's not how much she's going to make. What she's going to make is her dividend. And if you look at the word annual, that means yearly. So that means every year, for every share that she owns, she will get $2.13. So $2.13 times the number of shares, and she will make $1,491. We call this kind of money unearned income. It's dividend income, but it's unearned because it's your money working for you, unlike earned income, which is tips, wages, commissions, which is you working for the money. This is unearned income. But anyway, so now to write an expression, or actually an equation for the dividend income D. Jacques purchases X shares of a corporation that pays a Y dollar annual, so that's important to know, dividend. What is his annual dividend income D expressed algebraically? So his dividend income will be X times Y shares. Now, you'll notice I didn't put a time symbol with the X, although sometimes, I'm in the habit of doing it sometimes, but that would have been a little bit confusing having two X's next to each other. So we tend to use no symbol at all when we're writing multiplication with variables. So my final equation, okay, Lise owns 2,000 shares of a corporation that pays a quarterly dividend of 51 cents per share. How much should she expect to receive in a year? So now we have quarterly. That is every 3 months, also known as 4 times a year. So she will get paid 51 cents 4 times a year, and she'll get that for each of her 2,000 shares that she owns. So there's two ways that you can do this. In the class, I would have you see if you can figure out how much she's going to make, and then we would compare to see how your method compared to other people in the class. One method that people use is they find out how much she makes in a year first. So how much is 51 cents times 4? That is $2.04. So each share is going to pay her $2.04 times your 2,000 shares, and you have $4,080 of dividend income for owning this stock. The other method people do is they look at how much they get each quarter. So some people say, I'll take my 51 cents and I'll multiply by the shares so that I can see that I make $1,020 every quarter. Now there are 4 quarters in a year, $4,080. So it doesn't matter what order you go in because multiplication is commutative, but that just shows you that you can have a little bit of freedom to do your own method, but you did at some point need to multiply by 4 to make that quarter turn into a year. So if we are going to write our dividend income equation for this situation, and we have X shares, and this time to show a different way to show multiplication, I'll use parentheses, and then I've got my Y shares times 4. We tend to want to write the numbers in front of the variables. So the final version that I'm going to write is with the 4 in the front, and we tend to write the letters in alphabetical order, the variables in alphabetical order. So that probably would be the version I would have for my final answer. D equals 4xy, and not having the multiplication symbol, leaving that out. That's multiplication when variables are written next to each other. Okay, and then a little bit about return on investment. And percentages are so important in financial math, and it's very important to know what you're comparing to. So percentage yield actually compares to the current price of one share. So the yield for any particular stock is constantly changing every day, because every day there's going to be different prices for the stock, even within a day, many different prices. So that yield is constantly changing based on what the current price of the share is. And this is a different concept. Yield is what you're yielding, bringing forth income-wise from the stock, but return on investment actually looks at your whole investment. And so return on investment actually needs to reference back to what you actually put into it and compare it to what you actually made. So that's two different things. But these formulas on this page are all about percentage yield. All of them will compare to the current price or the price for that day that they want the yield for. Okay, Kristen owns 50 shares of a common stock in Max's Toy Den, which she bought for $40.68 a share. The annual, so it's very important to see if it's annual, because this needs to be annual. If it was quarterly, we'd need to multiply by 4. The annual dividend is $1.40. The current price is $57.40. What is the yield? We do not need the previous price, so my yield will be $1.40 over the current price of $57.40 times 100, and I get 2.43902439, but they said to round this to the nearest tenth of a percent. So if I chop it here, that is the 10th place. A 3 means I will not increase my 4. I will not increase that. So I'm going to write 2.4%. You bought X shares of a stock for P dollars per share. The annual dividend per share is D dollars. The stock is currently selling for C dollars per share. Express the percent yield algebraically. Y equals a year of dividends, D, over the current price, not the number of shares, not the previous price, the current price. And then I know I'm putting a little time, an X for the times, but normally you'd be writing this with numbers. But so maybe it would have been better for me to write it with a dot, or maybe I could write it with parentheses, or maybe I could bring that 100 in the front, or probably the way they'd have it in your textbook, they'd bring that 100 up with the D and put it all over the C. So Y equals 100D all over C. Yesterday, one share of Beep Company preferred stock paid an annual dividend of $1.20. Today, it closed at $34.50, which is down 50 cents, $0.50, from yesterday. What was the stock's yield yesterday? What was its yesterday yield? So yield is going to equal that dividend, make sure it's annual, $1.20, over, I want you to compare to yesterday. And if it's $34.50 today, which is down from yesterday, so yesterday down 50 cents, you're now at $34.50, we have to add 50 cents to get to yesterday. So 35 and then times 100. They didn't tell us how many decimal places they wanted, so I'll just write it all out and look at what looks reasonable to round to. Okay, let's round to the 100th place this time. That 8 means this 2 has to go up, so 3.43%. Last question about yield. One more, writing an algebraic expression. Okay. 1 share of this corporation pays an annual yield. It's funny that all of these were annual yields. We never had to fix them by multiplying by 4 to turn a quarterly yield into a year, but that's fine. Okay, so my yield will be my dividend, $1.55, over. Now on the denominator, I need yesterday. But today is X, which is up 40 cents from yesterday. So you need to send it down. So there's my yesterday's price, X minus 0.40 times 100. Again, like since I'm now working with variables, probably that X would be a little confusing to someone. So might be better to write it without the times symbol, without that, maybe with the dot, or better looking with the parenthesis. But again, numbers, we like to write them in front. So maybe it'd be better to put the 100 in front and the 1.55 x minus 0.4 in parentheses. Or one other version that this might be, probably the way I would really write it, is I would send that 100 up by multiplying that 100 times the 1.55. I'd get 155 over x minus 0.40, and that would be my final expression, potentially the one that matches the back of the book if I was using a book. Okay, last page is coming up, and that's going to be bonds, which in a lot of ways trade in the same way that stocks do. They're a little bit more cumbersome to buy and sell. They are products where you've loaned money to either a corporation, or a municipal bond would be to a city, like Newport might do a bond to fix the sewer. I know Derby Line did a bond to fix their sewer. The high school here is thinking about issuing a bond to fix up A-Wing. You could have a government bond like those Series E bonds that probably your grandparents like to buy for you. They don't really increase in value that much, but grandparents really like to buy those. All right, when you loan someone money, they pay interest to you. This is because they are paying to use your money, just like a bank pays you to put money in the bank, or you pay the bank money when you borrow money to buy a car. Whenever someone borrows money, they need to pay interest to use it. And so that's basically what the simple interest formula finds. So Adam is getting a 1,000 corporate bond, and that's what this bond was for an original loan. But as those bonds are usually like long-term things like 10-year, 20-year bonds, sometimes somebody wants to get out of the investment and someone else will buy in. So the price, the market price, will fluctuate, depending on if people want that bond or not. But the face is what is the principal. So my interest will be the principal times, now I like to put my mixed number in parentheses because that 2/3 is a fraction that has a repeating decimal, And so that I don't lose any of my decimals, I like to put it as a mixed number. The word 5 and 2/3, that's why I'm putting a plus sign there. Now my percent symbol. What does the percent symbol mean? Divide by 100. So far I've done the P and I've done the R. Now I have to look at T. How long is this thing for? 1 year. So I don't really need to write it even for a bond. When I multiply this out, making sure to put the plus sign for my word and, 56.67. That's how much you're going to make. You could use a rounded decimal, but what you would need to have at least 5 digits to make sure that you're going to get 4 of them right in your answer. So now if he receives $56.67 times 11 years, over the course of 11 years, he will have made $623.37. Now, I just want to say that I talk a lot about a certain kind of investment, an index fund in the S&P 500. If he had invested in that instead of the bond, he would have made $1,700 roughly. I mean, I get $1,713, but like we can't know for certain, but probably would have made around something like that. So like that's why myself, I don't own any bonds, but my mother is like totally into bonds. So yeah, you do what you feel comfortable with. The main thing is you need to be investing. An index fund in the S&P 500 is an amazingly good investment, really very safe. PRT, especially when I say very safe, I mean for the long term time. Okay, so Meg's buying a $500 Vermont State Street bond. She bought it at 512, but that doesn't really matter. What's important to Vermont is that they will pay on the face. And they will pay 4.8%, and they're going to do it for time equal to 1 year. So $500 times 4.8 divided by 100 times 1. I mean, I'll write it, but not that that's going to do anything. And that means that she will make $24. A lot better than a savings account. And the last one, for 5 years, she's going to hold this bond. So $24 times 5, $120. And the bonds really are nice that they're in the interest that they pay is something that is told to you and stays constant for the term of the bond. So that's something nice because it's a guaranteed income.